for me, the most important policy change that we saw, in decades. And that was the Justice Reinvestment Initiative. I ended up moving over to the Open Society Institute Foundation, which was doing a lot, if not the primary foundation work on over-incarceration. No other foundation at that time, which was around 2001, was really doing much comparatively. And it was there that working with Susan Tucker that we came up with this idea I called justice reinvestment. And it was using the maps and the demographic and population displacement understanding combined with the $1 million block mapping that helped us remember, in fact, what had been done in a kind of approach that had been taken back in the 70s in terms of what they called chargeback system. And together with sort of what we were doing and visits we started to make around the country, to a place, I'll tell you a short story that really captures what we were doing, in Oregon, a county called Deschutes County, Oregon, where we met the director of the juvenile justice system out there, which at that time had become a community justice system, Dennis Maloney. What he had done is he had seen very much the same thing, not going quite through the same ways we were, but he was seeing how much was being spent on juvenile imprisonment compared to school investment in his county. And he organized county commissioners around the issue and local business people who then lobbied the state Senate and got a senator to sponsor and ultimately pass legislation that in effect said this: okay, from now on, Deschutes County cannot send us, from now on, we are going to give Deschutes County the amount of money we spend to incarcerate juveniles from that county every year as a block grant for them to spend any way they want. The qualification being that they can no longer send us juveniles to incarcerate. And anytime they do send us someone to incarcerate, we're going to charge them back the cost of incarceration. So what they established was they kind of reversed the financial disincentives to local innovation. And that was one of the big problems, because when we did the $1 million block issue, what we did is we brought the dollars back to the local geography to remember that by sending folks to state prison, right, we're eschewing costs locally, and because the state will pay for, of course, imprisonment, but we're, not changing any circumstances locally. And if we wanted to, let's say a municipality said, we want to start to work with a whole class of offenders in a more productive local way rather than sending them to prison, how are they going to pay for that? Well, they have to come up with the money. So the justice reinvestment idea suggested, well, look, if we can reduce incarceration rates to a systemic level that actually saves corrections dollars, why not invest those dollars locally? Why not make that a trade-off? And that I kind of stole the name justice reinvestment when I was thinking about and researching that community, the sort of the Community Reinvestment Act, which requires banks to start making low-income loans and mortgages to low-interest loans and mortgages to low-income neighborhoods, because mapping had found that they were redlining their loans in certain ways to certain neighborhoods. So Community Reinvestment Act was passed that said, well, the banks won't get their FDIC insurance unless they can show they're reinvesting in low-income neighborhoods. So we sort of translated that into justice reinvestment. And that has now taken off over the course of 10 years. It was launched through the Open Society Institute for many years, taken up in great part by the Council of State Governments, which is a national association of state legislator, executive branch government leaders. It's kind of a national association. They took it on the road, and actually, because they're responsible to state legislators and state executives to help them solve problems, and they brought reinvestment as a new option. And that took off over the last 7-8 years to being adopted in 12, 13 states across the country. And then last year being adopted by the federal government as a new program of the Bureau of Justice Assistance. And even the Attorney General endorsed justice reinvestment as this new approach to gaining control of runaway correctional populations and reinvesting in local innovations. So to me, that was sort of the biggest and best specific sort of outcome that resulted from the way we're using maps to rethink the crime conversation.